During the time of the pandemic, there's been a disturbing increase in the number of news reports about various countries expanding emergency powers, which is understandable, but the nature of the emergency powers has exceeded the scope of the requirements or the need to address the pandemic. And in particular, which is most disconcerting, is that the reports have indicated the emergency powers are being used to advance political purposes against dissidents. And so for anyone who's a supporter of human rights or a supporter of liberal democracy, these kinds of things were somewhat alarming. What I write about in my essay is that there's a compatibility between the tenets of the scientific method and civil liberties. And so specifically, what I try to point out is that transparency implies the right to information. Data collection implies the rights of assembly and communication to be able to engage, or for researchers to engage with research subjects. The integrity of data implies a requirement that there's an independence from manipulation, particularly from the state. And that the data is maintained separate from political interests. The demands of critical analysis requires a freedom of thought and freedom of opinion, and the tenets of having an open discourse that can facilitate the kind of engagement necessary to further critical analysis involves a freedom of expression, as well as the rights to life and security for people to go ahead and further inquiry without worry of retribution to their lives or livelihood. So the long-term implications for human rights out of the COVID-19 pandemic will be a contest. And what I would expect to see going forward in the future is a struggle between pro-authoritarian inclinations versus liberal interests. I think we'll continue to see various regimes around the world attempt to use the crisis to further their political interests. And there is that maxim that you should never let a crisis go to waste for political ends. However, in response to that, I think that liberal states have opportunities to maneuver, and that they do have an ability to work through the pandemic as a means of defending and advancing liberal values. And specifically for liberal states that have committed themselves to developing medical science and medical technology. So presumably in this case, given the past several decades, that would include Australia. There is the potential that they can advise states to which they render assistance, particularly within the developing world, that the efficacy of the medical science, the potential of the medical technology is predicated on having a liberal environment.